they going to properly onboard me like the first day? Is this going to be something that I have to do beforehand? It's these little things that most candidates, including myself, I would have been terrified to ask any of these questions because I feel like they're really dumb. But those are valid questions that every single new start has, especially when there's stakes involved, such as having a family, needing to switch over benefits and stuff like that.
Initiating becoming a hiring machine sequence in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, it's Sam Keenly, and welcome back to Becoming a Hiring Machine. This is the show dedicated to fixing recruitment by going beyond saying what needs to change and instead teaches you how to make that change. Today we've got a great Tactical Tuesday ahead of us, but before we get into that, I just want to tell you a little bit about the show. Essentially, we've got shows within the show here. Some days we have interviews with industry thought leaders and others who are shaking up the space, while other days we cover things like trending topics. Stop by every Tuesday like today for a Tactical Tuesday episode where we go deep on how to do something that's going to help you drive better results in your day-to-day. Some days we open up for Q&A. Listeners can drop in questions that they'd like to hear us take on, so send those to us at podcast@loxo.co. And occasionally you'll get a mic drop episode from Matt where he stops by to share something that he's been thinking about within the recruitment space and wants you to know. All right, everyone, your favorite Tactical Tuesday co-host Vivien is back. So now that we've wrapped up the 5-episode reporting mini-series, also strongly recommend you go back and listen to those if you haven't yet, episode 63, 65, 67, 69, and 71. But yeah, Vivien is back to join us today, and we've got a good one ahead of us. It is all things pre-boarding, or as Vivien explained to me before the recording, that awkward time between accepting an offer and the start date. So today she's going to get into everything you need to know and do to successfully navigate this period to set both yourself and your candidate up for success. So Vivien, welcome back.
Thanks for having me again. I missed being here.
music to my ears when someone says, I'm like, yes, okay, she'll be back for more. So yeah, it was a good little mini series we had with Logan on the reporting. So I think he's going to be coming back at different points as time goes on. But yeah, when you were telling me about this concept of pre-boarding, I'm like, ooh, this is interesting. So yeah, tell me a little bit about just like your thoughts and where this all stemmed from.
So this actually came from my own experience. Before I joined Loxo, I knew I made the right decision. And I was super excited about it. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, am I doing the right decision? And then part of me were like, okay, this is like my dream job. I didn't even know this existed. Is this too good to be true? I love the coworkers that I currently have. And all of a sudden I started questioning everything, because when people start looking for a job, they're hyper focused on all the things that aren't working, and they completely forget the things that are working that they appreciate, until it's time to like completely leave something behind. And all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, I'm going to miss this. I'm going to miss that. That's working really well. And that's just your own kind of process. But then you also have to think about, what about like their family, their spouse, like how is that going to happen now, especially lately, economic uncertainty with all these like unexpected layoffs. People typically have that impression of like last one in, first one out. So all of a sudden, all of these questions start popping up. And as a recruiter, I was always told, make sure that you check in with them, not just even like to see how they're doing, but also because a lot of times companies will try to retain someone with a counteroffer and saying, hey, I can give you a stay bonus. Is money going to make the difference and stuff like that? And I've had a couple of instances where a counteroffer was presented, and thankfully the candidate was smart enough to decline it. But there's a lot of different things that can go wrong in that weird time of transition where they're kind of like getting ready to leave their old workplace while starting a new one. They have questions, they're questioning themselves. Everybody is asking them, oh, how is this going to work? And so there's a couple of things that a recruiter can do. Obviously, a big thing is building trust ahead of the offer, even just as the interviews are going really well, figuring out, why is this candidate even looking for a job? Because if it's just money, then a counteroffer is potentially going to take them off the market, and they're going to ghost you and not show up, even though they have technically signed the offer letter. That happens. I've seen a LinkedIn post about that very recently. And you also have to kind of think about, what's their family going to think? Is their commute time going to change? Right now they really know what the work schedule is. Is that going to change? Because this is where, especially when you have a spouse and kids, this is when they're like, well, wait a minute, how is that going to affect family time? And so knowing why exactly they're moving and saying, hey, now that you have accepted the offer, have you chatted with your family about this? And like presenting all of that and asking them, okay, what are you going to do? Like, how are you going to let your employer know? Do you know how they're going to react? And if they start thinking about this before they're actually going to execute, then they can start preparing for it of what's to come emotionally, but also what's actually going to happen in terms of a reaction, whether it's a counteroffer, then they already know. And that's not going to be something where they're like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden I'm getting $100,000 stay bonus. Maybe I should stay. That is a lot of money. That all of a sudden is very enticing. But when you help them realize, hey, you're leaving because you don't have a work-life balance. You want to spend more time with your family. This is a shorter commute. They have like your favorite gym is already included and they pay for it. So you just have to like show up and then your gym membership is paid for. You can actually attend the gym. You have more time with your family because they have a hybrid work schedule. So you can work from home and things like that. Just kind of reminding them of these things and making sure that they know why they're making the switch, why they're leaving the current one, and why they're moving to the new one. That is super, super helpful.
Yeah, those are so impactful and important. And yeah, those are reminders because yeah, it's really easy to get into like the rabbit hole of anxiety, like, oh, is this the right decision? Start thinking about all those. But yeah, on the recruiter side, as you were going through some of those, I was almost thinking, well, what can you do as a recruiter to proactively get ahead of some of those? So it's like if you know that a counter offer is going to come, and if it's a good employee, which you're going after them for a reason, I would hope that they're viewed as a good employee where they're at. Assume a counter offer is going to come, and if you know what they made, or if you talk to them after, you can have that discussion on understanding like if money's a motivator, like what's your number, like if this does come through, say you were to get the same amount from both companies, like what's more appealing to you, what's more appealing to your long-term career and everything else. So helping them get ahead of that so it's not completely uncharted territory when it does come about, I think that could be massively helpful. And then especially when you have families, like that benefits package, it's real easy to think like, oh, you're yeah, same benefits, you have your 401k, you have health insurance, all that stuff. But when you go and try to transfer an entire family across a different health insurance provider, set up a new 401k, like it's not fun. It's a
Yeah.
hassle. So helping people understand, like, here's what you're going to want to do beforehand. If you have previous prescriptions with the one, like get prior authorizations in place, go find like all the doctors in your new network, share all that information with them and try to take some of it on for them, or connect them to the HR manager or the head of people at the new organization so they can do that ahead of time, especially again, if it's not just the 22-year-old out of college. It's like, oh, just give me the base package. I'm good with anything. I never have to go to the doctor. But like you have a family, you have other things, try to help them as much as possible. I mean, you're going after this person at the end of the day for a specific reason. So you want them to start off on a good note.
Yep. And to your point, it makes sense to have like a running frequently asked questions doc specifically to each client to see if you can already get a couple of those documents and send them over and be like, hey, now that you're actually tangibly, you've accepted the offer, you're starting to make these changes. Here's your benefits that you can choose from. Start thinking about this because when you show up for day one, at least you kind of know what's coming. You've had a chance to review the benefits packages. Ideally, you would also coordinate if you're an agency recruiter. If you're in-house, you probably already know your internal onboarding processes. But if you are an agency recruiter, you do want to check in with the HR department and say, hey, what does the first week typically look like? Like, what are they covering on day one? What do they need to bring? Because to them, they're doing this every week. And so to them, it's common sense. But that little bit of ambiguity of like, are they going to properly onboard me like the first day? Is this going to be something that I have to do beforehand? It's these little things that most candidates, including myself, I would have been terrified to ask any of these questions because I feel like they're really dumb. But those are valid questions that every single new start has, especially once there's stakes involved, such as having a family, needing to switch over benefits and stuff like that. So having this and also building that trust to be like, listen, if you have questions that you're terrified to ask because you feel like they're stupid, come to me. I'm your middleman. I will take all of this on. This is the cool part about working with an agency recruiter is that the agency recruiter can be that middleman and say, you know what, you're not the only one that has asked this. Even if somebody comes to you and this is the first time they have asked for this, kind of reward them for asking this because most likely if that one candidate has that question about, can I find out who the insurance is going to be so I can figure out doctors and switch prescriptions and stuff like that. Somebody else might ask this and then you already have like a frequently asked questions running doc where you can be like, great question. Here's actually a doc of all the questions I've already compiled with answers. If you have any more, let me know. no questions are stupid. I want to know all of these things. And that way you can provide that extra kind of service, because the ambiguity of changing and not having answers and being kind of like, "Oh, I don't know if I want to ask that question,"
Yeah.
because you don't want to ask stupid questions before you start, that can be so helpful and just reassuring that they really did make the right decision, because everything seems so organized and they feel taken care of and seen of like, hey, we have thought about all of this. Like, here's
Yeah.
what we can do.
That's
Here's what we know. Here's what we can share. That helps alleviate that anxiety of change, because the biggest thing about change is the surrounding ambiguity. And whatever you can alleviate, whatever information you can provide them to help make that transition and answer more questions, even if they haven't asked any of them, that's going to be huge.
Yeah, that's the beauty of, it's the white glove service side of it. And it can be a win-win as well, because I'll call it a win-win-win. One, you're helping the candidate that you're hiring to feel better, providing with all information. Two, you're learning yourself, like, what are the things that I should know or I should be prepared for moving forward. It's that concept of like, what have I learned? How do I apply it to future ones? And three, when you go to that hiring organization and you say, here's everything I want to know before this candidate starts, they're just like, oh wow, Vivian's got her bases covered. Like, they can think about that when if they hire internally or not in the future, or if they have another recruiter that they use and they're just like, oh, Vivian covered all this. Why aren't they asking these questions or anything else? Like, that's only going to make you look better again as well. So there's no downside to doing any of this. I mean, it's extra work. So I guess that's one downside. Like, you're gonna have to put in a little bit more effort there, but the long tail of it is so worth it.
Definitely. And the other part is also, why should people switch and not ghost you? And we talked about this in the Halloween episode about ghosting. It's, people will ghost if they're too afraid to ask questions. And yes, it's on the person to ask questions, but it's also on the recruiter and on the hiring team to create a safe space. And I know people hate the safe space term and all that kind of stuff, but there is a level of trust that needs to be built. And if people are discouraged to ask stupid questions or questions that might seem like common sense or something like that, people are asking these questions because these are important things to them and they're trying to figure things out proactively. And if they can't get answers to that, or if they're terrified of being shut down or something like that, this is where people will say, well, I have too many questions. Anxiety is too high. I know my job. I know what I'm dealing with. I've already been dealing with it. It's safer for me to deal with the known stuff as opposed to
Hmm.
dealing with the unknown stuff that I don't know. And this is where that can go such a long way. And if you've had that experience with one client as an agency recruiter, you have that running FAQ doc, send it to the next one and say, listen, if you want to make sure that ghosting never happens, this is what I need from you. I need it from you at this stage to know, how does the day-to-day work all the way through. They have accepted the offer. This is what I need to provide them with so that they actually show up to their first date. You want to make sure that people are showing up. This is what it takes. This is the new age that we're in. This is what the next generation is requiring. They just want to know stuff. So as long as you can give me that, we can minimize all of the ghosting.
Yeah, I love that. And of course, my ridiculous head goes to, I'm just like picturing the different Ghostbusters at the different stages, like Dan Aykroyd at one point, Bill Murray at another, like totally personifying them. But yeah, it's so true to get ahead of it in all those different spots. So um yeah, hopefully this is helpful to people. Anything else that we missed or people should think about with pre-boarding?
Definitely check in with them, and also kind of figure out, where is this person? If it's a new college grad, then they probably don't care about any of this. But if this is somebody who has a family, who potentially needs to relocate, definitely start having these conversations and ask, hey, how does your family feel about this? Have you even told them that you're considering new jobs? Because there are instances where you can actually be at like a final interview, they're excited, they're starting to think about salary, and then you're like, hey, this requires relocating. Have you actually told your family that this is going to happen, that you need to put your house on the market very soon, you need to move? How is this going to work? They're like, no, we're going to cross that bridge when we get there. It's like, I don't think so. Let's figure this out. Why haven't you told your family about this yet? Because those are potential things those are monsters. They're going to rear their ugly heads at some point. If you start seeing those like monster ears peek up from somewhere, go ahead and deal with them now,
Yeah.
because it might be a cute, a fluffy monster that's like, okay, it purrs, it's cute, kind of like a cat, or it's like a really bad dragon that is like out to get you. So, yeah.
I love it. Well, Avoid the monsters, get ahead of the monsters, slay the monsters. Oh, Vivien, I'm so glad you're back for these. This has been fun. I love these types of conversations. So looking forward to all of the ones that will continue. But I hope this really does start to inspire some different recruiters to think about how they can incorporate this in their day-to-day moving forward. So as we wrap, Becoming a Hiring Machine is a production of Loxo. If you like this episode, but you're not sure where to go next, we've got a link to a similar one in the show notes, which you can find in the description of your favorite podcast streaming platform, as well as on our website. Full video episodes are available on YouTube as well as on the website. And if you have questions, you want to get some advice for us, anything else, send those to us, podcast@loxo.co. So, all right, everyone, that's the show. That is a Tactical Tuesday as we welcome Vivien back. Until next time, bye, y'all.
Bye, everyone.